Okay, let me welcome everybody to the House Study Committee here, which was developed by HR 711. And I'm gonna call out, as we like to do here, our LC number just to have it on record: LC 520861S. And the study committee was created for student attendance in pre-K through 12 education. So that is going to be our task, members. In a minute, I'm going to ask you to introduce yourselves. We have three presentations today. Um, our goal, committee members here, is today would be to understand kind of where we're at in the state of Georgia with student attendance, as well as the effect of not attending school on learning for that child. And that could be the effect all the way through adulthood, by the way. So our goal, I think, to begin this committee is to achieve those two things through some information given today and some study. Members, if you would look, I have produced a notebook to give you a hard copy of our presentations today, as well as some information that has come to us from other organizations that are providing information. I will state that we're willing to listen so that I can be the point person for information, whether it's this is the data we have nationally on student attendance, or whether that these are some good things that are happening, and here's some data of how it's improved the learning and the attendance of our students. So we'll open up right there. Let me begin by asking Chairman Dubnik, as we like to start all of our meetings, we'll do this with a word of prayer, if you would. And are you number 5? I think I got you.
Again, well, thank you very much. Appreciate y'all being here. If you'll join me as we go, Lord, in prayer. God, good morning, Lord. I just thank you for the chance to be here, Lord, just with the blue skies and the sunshine outside. Lord, I thank you for the men and women in this room and for their passion, for their willingness to serve and to come here for the students and the families of this great state. Lord, I thank you for all those students, for those teachers, those administrators, those support personnel, the coaches, Lord, just across this state that will soon walk back in the classroom and help educate our future generations. Lord, just bless them, guide them, keep them safe, and let them just impart wisdom and knowledge to the next generation. Lord, I thank you for the traveling mercies to get here, and pray for the same as we return home to our families and our businesses. Lord, we love you. We thank you for this day, for it's in the name of Jesus the Christ we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Chairman. Let me begin. I'll introduce myself. My name is Chris Irwin. I'm Chairman of Education for the House of Education. The whole thought here was what I've just told you, is to see if we can improve the lives, the learning, and the attendance of our students through this study committee, and developing good policy or appropriating the funds where we need to appropriately for schools' use and for students' use. Let me start on the end again with you, Chairman Dubnik. If you would introduce yourself, state a little bit about your role here at the House and this committee.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name's Matt Dubnik. I'm from Gainesville, born and raised there. Proud to call that home today. I represent the cities of Gainesville and Oakwood and parts of Hall County. I'm in my 9th year here in the House, and currently I serve as chairman of the House Education Appropriations Committee.
And has also been past chairman, which I followed him in, and a good job as chairman of education here for the House. Thank you, Chairman. Representative Townsend, I believe you're next.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Let me get you cut on there. There you go. Sorry.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Yeah, Rick Townsend from the St. Simons Brunswick area, District 179. On Education Committee, longtime educator, 30 years, pre-K through 12, with different roles, different capacities. Appreciate the opportunity to be here to kind of help look at this. We know if the kids aren't in school, they can't learn. We know it's important. We know a lot, we can do things at the local level. Hopefully we can somehow just discuss this at the state level and decide how we can help out as a body. And so I'm glad to be here, and that's it, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Representative, and a long distinguished career in education, not only as a teacher, principal, but as a superintendent. So thank you for participating. Vice Chair, I believe you're up next.
Hello, everyone. I'm Representative Carmen Rice, District 139, which covers Muskogee, Harris County. That's about an hour and a half south of here. And honored to be here because anytime we put something in front of us and discuss it, it expands the situation. And this is such an important issue because, as Representative Townsend said, if the students aren't in the seats, they aren't learning. And we're all very passionate about advancing Georgia's education. And I'm honored to be here, and I thank each of you for being here.
Great. Thank you, Vice Chair, and proud that you're serving on us, as you've had a major impact this year on many of the bills and policies we developed. So, number one down there, Representative, same thing to you, Donna Tucci.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Is it on?
Yes.
Okay. I'm Sandy Donatucci. I am in District 105. So I am in the Beaufort, Decula, and Lawrenceville area. I've lived in Gwinnett for the last 23 years. I am a freshman this year, and I served on the Education Committee as well as Transportation. I've got 3 children. They are all out of the school system now, but we had private school, we had public school, so very familiar with the concept. And then I have a daughter who is a teacher. So we've had a lot of discussions about absenteeism and their frustration with how do you educate kids that don't show up. So very excited about what we're going to go over.
Great. Thank you, Representative, and welcome to the committee. Glad to have you also serving with us on this committee. I believe we have 2 online on the committee with us. Patrick, how do I cut them on right there to give them an opportunity? Representative Glaze, let me ask you first if we can unmute yourself and see if we can get you.
Good morning.
Representative Glaze, are you there?
Yes, I am. Good morning, Chairman Irwin and my colleagues. It's a pleasure to say good morning to everyone. Sorry I couldn't be there in person, but I'm there in spirit. I'm here on the phone. I hail from the House District of 67.
Let's try this while we're trying to connect. Let's see if either one are connected for us. Representative Wade, are you online with us?
I am online and I see you and I hear you well. Can you hear me?
Well, we can see you, Representative Wade. We've just got to get your sound. Are you unmuted, Representative Wade?
I am unmuted on my end. Yes, sir.
We are having trouble connecting sound to you right here. Why don't we'll come back, Representative Wade and Representative Glaze, and let us work on this and see if we can connect y'all. Obviously, I can tell at least you, Representative Wade, you can hear us. So we'll continue with the meeting, and then we'll try to get you back on and work that with you. All right. As we work on that, let's go to our first table of contents, members, and look here. We got chronic absentee rates by school year. Number 1 is developed by SREB. I want to flip to that in our notebook. And if you've noticed, we've highlighted Georgia to give you the data across the board here, and then for you to be able to make a comparison. So it's after the first tab in your notebook. For other states, that you get an idea. And also, we backed up before COVID and then what's occurred since COVID. I think if you'll look at the final number at 21.3% in 23-24 school year, I believe the DOE, Justin, you're going to give us the 25 as it's come in now. And we can have a discussion, but know where we were tracking, know where everybody was tracking in 2018, and then where we're currently at that number. So going from 12% in 18-19 to 21.3% needs to be a registered number in your head and what impact that's going to have. And if you would flip then to tab number 2, which is the attendance statewide overview, what we're going to do is Dr. McGibney is on tab number 3. We're going to let him go first. I've already discussed with the members, just for the fact that Dr. McGibney is also giving a presentation up in Dalton to the Literacy Council. So we're going to jump you, Justin, if that's okay still, and let Dr. McGibney come on up. So if you would come to the podium, we're going to cut that on for you. Dr. McGibney, if you would introduce yourself, and then we'll begin your program, I believe. I believe your computer is on. I mean, your mic is on. Miss Shirley.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman.
Microphone is yours.
Thank you, sir. I'm Gary McGibney. I'm Chief Operation Officer for Health Security Dynamics, which is a consulting firm. I served 13 years as Deputy Superintendent of Georgia State Department of Education. I do a lot of work with agencies and nonprofits. I want you to know today, though, that the work that I'm referring to was volunteer work with the Georgia Reading Cabinet. It's a pleasure to be here today. The basis of what I will review today is from a 6-month study by the Student Attendance Subcommittee of the Get Georgia Reading Cabinet. I was asked to chair that. And the Get Georgia Reading, as many of you know, is a statewide initiative focused on improving early literacy and ensuring that all children in Georgia can read proficiently by the end of the 3rd grade. Because research shows that students who aren't proficient in reading by the end of the 3rd grade are 4 times more likely to drop out of high school. But as we were studying that, student absences kept coming to the attention of the Get Georgia Reading Cabinet from schools and families and teachers and communities. So the Get Georgia Reading Cabinet formed the subcommittee, which explored the determinants of student absences, the far-reaching effects of student absences, and proven and potential ways to improve student attendance. The subcommittee included representatives from superintendents, RESAs, the DOE, USG, TCSG, Georgia Partnership for Education Excellence, Georgia Family Connection, State Board of Education, Public Health, and others. The subcommittee met every 2 weeks for 6 months and reviewed data, research, literature, effective practices, surveys, heard from different sectors, including teachers, parents, pediatricians, social workers, and others. The result was an extensive report that identified factors related to student attendance, but also what can be done to reduce absences. And while the report was finalized, the committee continues to meet and the report continues to be updated. As we'll see in some following data slides, student absences have become a growing concern. Absenteeism directly impacts the student's academic success, as I mentioned earlier, but also social development and overall well-being. Regular school attendance is closely linked to higher academic achievement, graduation rates, and the development of skilled workforce. This chart shows the pre and post-pandemic absenteeism in the ranges of 0 to 5 days absent, 6 to 15 days absent, and more than 15 days absent. The reason we use that standard is because the 10% does vary according to the number of school days the school system has. Some school systems have 180 days, some have 170 days. So the committee decided to look at over 15 days because that would be uniform across the state. And naturally, when you look at this chart, Mr. Chairman, our eye goes to the yellow line because that's more than 15 days. And it's troubling to see that 20% of our students are missing 3 weeks or more of school during the school year. The most recent data shows still near 20%, which is double where we were before the pandemic. And while we're focusing on the yellow line, we must not overlook the blue line, which is 6 to 15 days absent. And we often overlook that data. And I point that out because research shows that significant learning loss occurs after the 5th day of absence, not consecutive, but cumulative days after the 5th day. Additionally, research shows that kindergartners who were absent more than 5 days scored 20% lower in reading and over 25% lower in math than their peers who were absent fewer than 5 days. Another study conducted by Ohio State University of over 800 elementary schools across the nation found that from kindergarten to the 5th grade, 1 day absent from school equals 2.5 days of lost math learning, and 1.5 days of lost literacy and language learning. So 5 days absent means that almost 13 days of lost math learning and over 7 days of lost language and literacy learning. That's why that 6 to 15 days is so important. Knowing that, look again, like I said, at the blue line, because over 40% of our students are missing 6 to 15 days of school, over 40%. And when we add the blue line and the yellow line together, lost learning is happening to over 60% of our students. Perhaps that's one of the reasons why only 38% of our third graders are reading proficiently. This slide shows the pre and post-pandemic percentages of absences by grade level. The higher rates of absences post-pandemic is across all grade levels. Most people are shocked to see the high percentage of absences in the early grades. Note that 28% of our pre-K students are missing 3 or more weeks of school, 28%. And on the other side, over 33% of our 12th graders are missing more than 3 weeks of school. Here we see the pre and post-pandemic percentages of absences by groups. The high rates of absences post-pandemic is across all groups, but are highest among Black students, students with disabilities, and economically disadvantaged students. It's also important to look at the percentage of students absent between 6 and 15 days, again, like I said, because of the earlier data that I shared. How much learning is lost, especially in the early grades. You'll note that 50% of kindergarten and first grade students miss 6 to 15 days, 50%. And the percentages remain high through all the grade levels, but especially the elementary grades. Again, we need to focus more attention on the 6 to 15 day absent range. This chart of groups also shows the higher percentage of absences of 6 to 15 days post-pandemic. But what is striking about this data is that the increases are consistent across all groups of students, with over 40% missing a week or up to 3 weeks of school. So with all the concern about student absences, Mr. Chairman, the question we thought needed to be asked was, well, what if we improved attendance? What if we actually reduced absenteeism? Would it really make a difference? Assumed that it would, but would it? So we asked the Atlanta Regional Commission researchers to answer that question, which was, what would the impact on third grade ELA assessment outcomes be if student attendance improved by 5%? And according to the research model developed by the ARC, it was found that a 5% decrease in absenteeism would lead to a 6.6% increase in third grade ELE proficiency in Georgia, which means that the percentage of Georgia students scoring proficient or above on the third grade ELA test would increase from 38.4% to 45%, which would be a dramatic increase and almost heard of improvement, and would move Georgia up significantly in the national rankings. But more importantly, it would mean thousands of more students would be reading proficiently by the end of the third grade. So it's worth our effort, Mr. Chairman, to have this study committee. As the subcommittee considered the elements related to student attendance, we wanted to know what role parent and family engagement play in student success, including school attendance. In fact, a recent analysis of data from Illinois found that schools with the highest level of family engagement experienced 6% point less absenteeism post-pandemic than schools with the least family engagement. With this understanding, the subcommittee sought to incorporate parent voice into its study process. So with the Corporation and Technical College System of Georgia, led by Assistant Commissioner of Adult Education, Dr. Kiana Good, TSG surveyed adults in their adult education program. The anonymous survey was completed by over 100 parents of school-aged children, and the parents were given 10 questions, which were based on the same survey questions conducted by Attendance Works, which is the national organization on student attendance. And this is what we learned. The TCSG survey indicates that parents weigh several factors when deciding if their child should attend school. Key considerations include the child's ability to manage the day, whether their physical health poses a risk to others, and if their child's overall behavior and attitude towards school. Parents prefer keeping their child home when unsure about their child's health, which is due to the pandemic. And they do indicate that the pandemic indeed changed their view and reactions to their child's health. But when schools provide information to parents about the importance of school attendance and good attendance, and define what good attendance is, and give parents resources to help them understand when they should keep their child in school, it does help parents make those decisions about whether to send their child to school. The important point there, Mr. Chairman, was parents wanted to know the importance of good attendance. They really did not understand the importance of good attendance. We heard from parents but also we wanted to know what school leaders say. And we looked at a national survey conducted by RAND Corporation and the Center on Reinventing Public Education in 2024 revealed that approximately 23% of school leaders report that none of the strategies they implemented to combat absenteeism, the ones they tried, were not very effective. However, the report and the subcommittee found that there are effective strategies to improve attendance as long as we understand four main points. One is it's essential to identify and address the root causes of absenteeism. Two, we must collaborate with many partners at the local, regional, and state level. Three, it's imperative to develop a wide range of strategies rather than focusing only on one or two. And four, we must get the message out to parents, community leaders, and others that schools cannot do this alone and that student attendance matters. The subcommittee took the appreciative inquiry approach to this issue, which is basically finding out what works, Mr. Chairman, which is different than the deficit model. We wanted to find out what works. The appreciative inquiry focuses on finding out what works at the local level, even at the state level and national level. So the subcommittee looked for what works to improve attendance and found effective strategies being implemented in Georgia and other states that leads us to insights and recommendations. We don't have time to discuss the entire report, but I'll just briefly go over some of the findings we had of what works. Schools can, and some are, tracking daily attendance to identify patterns of absenteeism early at the individual student level as well as school-wide. Some schools are implementing early warning systems that alert staff and parents when students are at risk of learning loss due to absences. Early detection helps schools intervene before students' absenteeism becomes a problem. By addressing absenteeism early, students are more likely to stay engaged in their education, leading to better academic performance, increased graduation rates, and long-term success. Utilizing a comprehensive study information system, schools can analyze absences, as you'll see later with the data dashboard, and these early warning systems flag at-risk students by automatically generating alerts that can be sent to parents. Staff can act immediately as well, ensuring that no prolonged absenteeism goes without some kind of intervention. Research shows that schools that use an early intervention method can reduce absenteeism by almost 30%. The research is clear, Mr. Chairman, that student engagement and feeling connected are crucial to school good attendance. Fostering a welcome and supportive school environment is critical for improving attendance, and I'll talk more about school climate a little bit later. Some schools look closely at the Georgia Student Health Survey, which is now the Georgia School Climate Survey, an anonymous survey to see how students feel about the school. And each of the questions one of the questions regards having a trusted adult at school, and research shows that the higher that rate is, the better the attendance is at those schools. Some schools have found that a growing number of students experience transition problems. And this seems to be especially a problem since the pandemic, like moving from one grade level to another grade level, moving from one school to another. And some students even have problems transitioning from one class to another class. So schools are developing transition plans for students, and some schools are developing individualized transition plans for students. This is a time-consuming practice, Mr. Chairman, but it's very effective. Some schools are using staff members who are considered student transition advisors or student attendance advisors, using state-funded supplemental funding, but we need to provide more funding for that position. I mentioned the importance of parental engagement. Student-school partnerships can positively impact attendance. Some schools are working to make sure their parents understand the importance of attendance and know school policies about attendance. They've increased their communication with parents, so they regularly communicate with them about their child's attendance and reminder about the importance of good attendance. Schools are offering parent workshops, letting parents know that resources are available at the school and in the community to address issues that may be impacting their child's attendance. But we've also learned that we may need many more school social workers, as many times it's a social worker that does this work. And I can guarantee you, Mr. Chairman, other members of the committee, having more school social workers would be a high return on investment.
Okay.
Many absences are due to health issues, physical and or mental health issues. Schools are partnering with health services to provide on-site clinics and or telehealth access and other resources for students with chronic health conditions or who need mental health services. One study found that when schools provide health and mental health supports, that reduces absenteeism by up to 30%. But our schools need more access to services and should include telehealth and telemental health. It's difficult for all schools and families to find the services what the children need, especially difficult in the rural areas. So many of them are depending on telehealth and telemental health, but they need more access to those services. Health screenings are important. For example, in Georgia, students do not receive vision and hearing screening as they do in other states. Texas and Tennessee and other states, for example, give vision and hearing screening for students in kindergarten, first, second, third, fifth, and eighth grade. Texas alone screens 2 million students a year for vision and hearing. In Georgia, when you first enroll in school, a form is given to the school that the vision and hearing screening has taken place, and there's no other vision and hearing screening after that, unless the child is referred for special services.
Let me
And we
interrupt
love
you just for a minute, Dr. McGivney, and point out to the members of the committee, we have a urging resolution in the House currently stressing the importance of screening for vision, hearing. I don't believe it has any of the dental or nutrition in there, Dr. McGivney, but point out to you that that is a resolution. Members that are there, it might be something we pay more attention to in a bill rather than just an urging resolution. Sorry for the interruption.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Some schools are working with community organizations and charities and government agencies to provide students and families with support services like food programs, housing assistance, healthcare access, and mental health services, tutoring, mentoring, homework help centers, and more. Schools found that collaborating with local organizations actually improves attendance and expands goodwill in the community and brings families closer to the school. Communities and schools is an excellent example of that. Also, another example is the Community Health Center, which provides schools, open up schools in the afternoon for parents to come and learn from classes and or use the computer to apply for aid or to apply for jobs. Many schools, Mr. Chairman, are prioritizing student safety by addressing school climate. And because research shows that there is a clear link between school climate and school safety, as well as school climate and school attendance. Many schools are aware that students who feel they belong in school, which is based on a positive school climate, have better attendance. PBIS, Positive Behavior Interventions and Supports, is a research-based framework for improving school climate that over 1,400 schools in Georgia are using, but it requires continuous training and does a lot of different effective methods to improve the climate of the school. But we need to be careful that we don't lose what we've gained by cutting back on PBS funding and retraining. We need to offer more support to the RESAs to ensure that school climate and PBS are at the forefront, a top priority. One way of doing this is to increase funding for more school climate specialists at each RESA, and the return on investment would be significant. Multi-tiered system of support, or MTSS, is being effectively used by many schools to address student attendance. MTSS is a framework that provides multiple levels of intervention to support students academically, behaviorally, and socially, including strategies to improve attendance. By offering differentiated levels of support and early intervention, depending on the severity of the problem, some schools are effectively identifying and addressing the root causes of absenteeism and providing support through the tiered system of interventions that is at the heart of MTSS. We need to encourage more schools to use MTSS to address student attendance and provide them with the resources they need to be effective. Many of us, Mr. Chairman, believe that local problems are best solved at the local level. This Georgia code was designed with that in mind by utilizing the convening influence of Superior Court judges to bring mental health, public health, law enforcement, school districts, DFACS, Family Connection, and others together to address student attendance and school climate. There are examples of effective implementation of this code section, for example, in Fulton County, Cobb County, Troup County, Richmond County, and some others, where they have the committees meeting and they're addressing the issues that are linked to student attendance. They are finding the root causes and are working as a community to address the needs of the students. That is the intent of what would be a very effective process when the committees are formed. But Mr. Chairman, not all Superior Court judges have convened these committees. Senate Bill 123, sponsored by Senator Kennedy, reestablished the importance of the code section and added requirements for schools to establish attendance teams, which some schools have found to be successful in identifying the root causes of absences at the first sign of attendance problems. We must ensure, Mr. Chairman and other committee members, that this code section is implemented with full fidelity. Some schools and school districts are using the Language as a Missing Link toolkit to train teachers, social workers, counselors, and administrators because we learn that too many students come to school with underdeveloped language and communication skills, which puts them at a distinct disadvantage and impacts their ability to engage in learning. A survey by EdWeek Research Center found that 70% of school district leaders believe student engagement has declined compared to pre-pandemic levels. That impacts interest in school and the desire to attend school. And it's not a cognitive issue, it's just that children have not been exposed to language. The Language as a Missing Link toolkit is free and can be downloaded from the Sandra Deal Literacy and Language Center. Research shows that expressive, receptive, and pragmatic language are crucial for school-age children as they impact learning, communication, and social interaction, which means it's essential for schools to include methods to engage students in learning, which is tied directly to attendance. This is an important factor in keeping students interested in school and thus improving attendance. We need to embed this type of training in our teacher preparation programs and professional learning programs. In closing, Mr. Chairman, it's critically important for schools, families, communities, and policymakers to work together to address the multifaceted causes of absenteeism. By developing comprehensive strategies and providing essential funding, schools, communities can improve student attendance and ensure better academic outcomes. The research and practice shows us we can do this. The QR code there takes you to the full report, Mr. Chairman.
The full report, great.
Thank you.
Give me, that's very good information from you. Some of it's sad to see the impact that it could have and on our future leaders in this state and the impact on their lives. Let me begin by, as I've asked you, if you'll stay at the podium up there, let committee members ask you some questions and let's have some dialogue with you based on the information you have presented. What do you mean? Oh, okay. All right. Okay, every one of y'all are good. Fantastic. I'll work down the road, maybe in the same order we did a minute ago. Let me serve my needs first, members, if you'll let me do that, because he generated some good comments to me. Y'all are smiling pretty good at me today. Did I say something or?
Go ahead.
Yeah, that's okay.
Laughing with you.
The chair that needs y'all's support, by the way, can we do a better job of supporting students that are absent, that have to be absent and that are absent? It doesn't need to be answered today, but if we can do a better job of working with those that are, that comes to mind right away, that we know that students are in accidents, they have medical issues, and are we doing the best job we can to get that information to them post-COVID? We learned a lot about how to teach from a distance to a child during COVID. So I'm not expecting an answer on that. I just would say that would committee members be something that I think would be worthy of some discussion and would pose to both or all three of the groups presenting today. What impact does suspension of a child play on their learning? We do know some students need to be suspended for different reasons. But knowing that impact as an educator could be very important, and then would ultimately, can we still serve that child? I know that an unexcused absence, a lot of times that work's not allowed to be made up in some systems, and maybe we need to rethink that a little bit. Comes to mind. Again, don't necessarily need an answer. I'm see you're ready, but I want the committee members thinking along those lines. Messaging matters. I believe you stated that, and that messaging is to the parents, is what I'm assuming. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And so that parent contact, and that's where that social worker could be so valuable, correct?
Yes, sir. And that's proven to be effective across the state.
Screening is important partially because of, let's just talk about my personal case where my son could not see the board for the first half or most of kindergarten, and I didn't even realize it. But the teacher realized it, and he was a semester behind right off the bat, kicking off, and hadn't missed a day. So there's importance in screening. You've stated that too, correct?
Yes, sir. And that was also the recommendation of a vision hearing working group that I was working for, the Literacy Commission, and they met for 6 months. I facilitated that committee as well. We had pediatricians and other experts on that, and they strongly encouraged us in Georgia to have more screening at multiple grade levels because we're missing students who have vision problems. Some have up to 12 to 15% of students have uncorrected vision problems, and the same percentage applies to children who have hearing issues that are undetected.
That's correct. Okay. And last is your PBIS comment that I wrote down was, we deal a lot, and I'm looking at the DOE people with at-risk students. I find it very interesting, the importance of looking at at-risk for chronic absenteeism and trying to see if you can help that. We've got a lot of mechanisms in place for at-risk students. It was surprising to hear the identification of the need to look at risk for chronic absenteeism. So in other words, we're trying to curb it before it happens, which is what we do in a lot of at-risk areas. Is that true?
Yes.
Okay. We're going to start down at the end at Chairman Dudnick. Let me turn your microphone on.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dr. McGivney, just a couple of questions, and you may not know this first. As you were going through the numbers and the days of absences, I was looking at some of the words on the slides and trying to write down reasons that a child might be absent, and I'm curious how much of these types of absences play into the numbers, or are we just looking at you're either in school or you're not in school? And, you know, Chairman Irwin just shared suspension, field trips, illness, either a child or a parent, vacation, transportation issues. Are they simply just skipping school? Is there a mental health day? Do you know by any chance if we have any delineated data that would incorporate, you know, these are days that, here's how those numbers would change if we were to say a parent was sick or a child was sick, or there was a reason that the school was given for that absence, or suspension, or transportation, the bus didn't run that. Do you know if we have any of that deep dive?
Chairman, that's a very good question, because that's a very elusive answer to that, because all those could be, and in some school districts are listed in their attendance data, but not all school districts look at it that way. Now, in Senate Bill 123, Senator Kennedy said there's unexcused and excused all count as absence.
Okay.
So that will help clarify some of the what you're talking about.
Sure. I'd love to get with you and try to find, how to sort and add some more data points. I mean, I agree with Chairman Irwin earlier. Students need to have their butts in the seat, so to speak, to learn, right? And so we can talk about all these things that create absenteeism issues, but they're still absent. That's the root. Mr. Chairman, if I could, just one more follow-up, please.
Yes.
Doctor, you talked about tracking daily attendance and that some school districts are tracking daily attendance. Do you know how many of our school districts are tracking daily attendance? And then similarly, what percentage of our total school population might be tracked for daily attendance by chance?
I do not know. I'm not sure if the Department of Education knows. It's not likely that they know how many are tracking daily. That's really unique to school districts, and some of them have just begun doing that in the last couple of years post-pandemic. However, some were doing that even before the pandemic. There are examples of some school districts have been tracking attendance for years, and their absenteeism rates are low because they have been doing it as a standard operating procedure for years. But more and more, maybe in a few years, we'll know more how many are doing that on a daily basis, but more and more are leaning in that direction.
Understood. Thank you, Chairman Irwin and Mr. Cardoza. If maybe I could follow up with you on that and we could try to look and just get some data points around that. It's one thing if we know 120 school districts are monitoring daily attendance, but if those are our 120 smallest and that only makes up 20% of our students, I'd love to also find some ways to work with our school districts, especially our larger ones, to figure out how to track that so we have better data. But thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Doctor.
Great. Thank you, Chairman. Rick?
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Dr. McGivney, thank you again. I enjoyed talking to you earlier. And just on a side note, everybody, when I was back in the admin days, whether it was superintendent or a CEO or career academy or superintendent or principal, Dr. McGivney was very helpful and always kind of that calm force, a DOE at times. And he would tell you like it is. That's what you wanted. You wanted direct answers. You didn't need a lot of other stuff. And anyway, I appreciated that. So thank you. A few questions, Dr. McGivney. One to follow up with Chairman Dumick, if that's okay. We used to call them when the kids were on a field trip or a football game or whatever else, SSA days, student activity days. We tracked them, and just kind of what you mentioned a second ago about not every system tracking daily attendance. I'm shocked because any system I've been in, we've always tracked daily attendance. I thought it was the norm, and I know there's data in there that you can pull out. DOE should be able to do that. The reports that we had to do through Infinite Campus or iSchool or whatever else. So that was interesting information, and that would be good to track something like that. You mentioned an earlier study about 23% of what didn't work. I'm looking at 76% of the schools. Admin said they had effective strategies to attack attendance. Do we know what some of those effective methods were of the 77% that were doing it right?
That included a combination of several things. They learned that they could not address this by trying just one strategy. So many of them reached into the community and said, we need your help. Some had community meetings, focus groups to find out what parents were thinking. Some had staff members to attend like local commission meetings and ask to speak, or attend the Rotary Club and ask to speak. But they made the concentrated effort to reach out into the community and not just wait for the community to come to them. They became very aggressive in getting the word out to the community about the importance of student attendance and understanding from their outreach into the community some of the reasons why the students were missing school as well.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think attendance has to be made important, and the schools are successful. That's another question. Are we looking at strategies from those effective school systems or schools? Sometimes it's just a pocket of schools within a school system that made it important. So their attendance rate is a lot better than everybody else's. And that's some of the things you want to look at. I know if you make it important, if the staff thinks that the staff thinks it's important, you get it across the parents where it's part of the value system then they all kind of tag team with the kids and kids understand the importance of being there. And so I think that's one thing we have to look at as well. Is the research on any research on hospital homebound? I mean, that's kind of a program that's been around for a long time. Depends on the size system they have, a small system, one person doing it, larger system, more than that, of course. We have a lot of small systems in the state of Georgia. Any kind of research on the effectiveness of how we're implementing hospital homebound, and hasn't gotten better since the pandemic, since you see more people online now and people are used to kids are used to tuning in either through online, through the classroom cameras that we have in the classrooms now, or just basically virtual education.
I'm not aware of the research. What we did hear about hospital homebound was in the rural areas is very much a challenge to meet the needs of students with hospital homebound, because the distances and also the amount of time you're asking staff members to commit to going and participating in hospital homebound. It's difficult to find the nurses if there's illness or serious injury in the rural areas. So investing more in the school nursing program. You know, the law was changed, Medicaid was changed a few years ago, where it expanded school nursing services in schools, but it requires billing somebody in the school system. As you remember, as a superintendent, there had to be somebody to do the billing, which is labor intensive. And some schools just can't do that. So they have not been able to take advantage of that expansion of school nursing services.
Okay. And is there a magic number for social workers? Some systems fund it locally through their own taxes after they get the state funding. As you know, most schools, you can survive just on state funding. That's why we have local school taxes. And some do it better than others, where if they place an importance on it, the social workers really attack the school attendance piece. I guess, are we judging the effectiveness of each system doing that? And is there a magic number associated with that? They're doing it effectively.
Well, if I recall correctly, the National Organization of School Social Worker recommends 1 to 250 students. And Georgia, I believe it's about 1 to 1,500 or 2,000.
That's correct.
And that's to be funded right state or locally, any of those type positions. So, okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Carmen?
Thank you, Dr. McGivney. Your presentation has been very helpful in getting this conversation started. And as we mentioned, all of the reasons for the absenteeism, we're looking at those very carefully. And you had a good list going here. Have you seen, as we're just gaining a better understanding on addressing this, certain reasons being more prevalent in urban areas versus the non-urban areas? So the rural areas.
No, we didn't see in the research a difference in the reason why there would be absences, except one. I will point out one difference that we saw in the research, and that was in the urban areas. There tended to be more issues related to diabetes and respiratory issues like asthma. Asthma is the leading cause of absenteeism of any health condition. And if you look deeper into that, one of the reasons why is because it's difficult for school systems to implement an asthma or diabetes management plan, especially if they don't have a school nurse. Research shows that if you implement the asthma and diabetes treatment plan, management plans, the attendance tends to be pretty much as close to average. It's a little above average, no matter what you do. But if you have the management plan in place, their attendance is much, much better. But again, that depends a lot on whether the school has a school nurse or not.
Okay, thank you. And one more follow-up question is, I was noticing on this Georgia code, and you mentioned several counties where the judges do have these committees in place. to follow up, and the successes, I do believe the success begins locally, obviously, to have these committees. Have you seen a drop off in these active committees since COVID because staffing and involvement drops off? And what is the regular protocol? Would you say they meet quarterly for the best outcome?
Well, the first question is, Georgia Appleseed Law and Justice Center did a survey to try to find out how many Superior Court judges have implemented the code section, and didn't get a strong response rate. But what they did find from the response was about 20 to 25%. Some of the reasons, number one was the turnover in Superior Court judges. The code section I mentioned was first implemented in 2004. That was student attendance. And for the next 5 to 10 years, there were several committees being implemented by the Superior Court judges. And apparently then it trailed off as turnover in the judgeship changes. And then in 2018, school climate was added to the statute, and that reinvigorated the interest, and there were more committees forming then. And then, as you pointed out, the pandemic hit, and apparently it dropped off from that and has not picked back up at the rate it was prior to that. The Council of Juvenile Superior Court Judges said many Superior Court judges just are not even familiar with the statute. They have not been made aware of it. So the Council of Superior Court Judges is trying to help get the word out. And Senate Bill 123, of course, revitalizes the interest in those committees. But you will see in those ones that have been working with this, Chatham County, over for several years, implemented the committee, and they saw impact on student attendance as well as other factors. So we know that it's effective because it brings all the decision makers at the local level together. If you look at the statute, everybody you'd want to bring together to talk about an issue is required to come to those committee meetings. And so we know that it can be effective in resolving issues at the local level.
Absolutely. Thank you. And thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Representative. Sandy?
So being the last person, I can always say that they all took my questions, but I do have a couple things. The schools that are doing the communicating for the absenteeism and having more effect, do you feel like that leadership is coming from the principal? Is it coming from, not specifically, but looking for a leader within the school? Is it the principal that's leading that charge?
Yes, it's going to be the principal doing that, and they will then assign staff to carry out certain strategies with their plan. But the leadership of the school is the one that really gets that started. And many of them come, of course, from experience as assistant principal where they dealt directly with attendance. So then when they go into the principal role, student attendance is very important to them.
Now, you said that the daily attendance is not being taken. So is most of this, how is this data brought together then?
The attendance is being taken. Now, whether it's being reviewed is the question.
Okay. And I don't know if this is a question for you or not, but looking at the Southern Regional Education Board and the chronic absenteeism, the numbers, Alabama had the best numbers in their recovery. Have you relooked at anybody on how they're doing it? Because they dropped their numbers quite substantially. And we started off at the same numbers almost back in 2018, 2019.
Apparently they have invested in, whether it's the state funding or local funding, I'm not sure. They have invested more in school social workers, invested more in going into the homes. They invested more in what we talked about earlier, involving the community. They've invested more in training school leaders on the importance of school attendance. So they've done a lot of different things.
Yes, please.
So I am aware, I was looking into this for another reason, but there's a program in Alabama for hearing. Theirs is specifically for hearing, but because they're finding that children are missing school because they can't hear, the parents think that they they don't understand school. They just can't do school. So I think that the vision and the hearing, they actually bring trucks in to the areas.
And Georgia does have a mobile hearing van, and there are some mobile vision screening entities, nonprofits in Georgia, and they are doing their best to go around Georgia to do the screening. So it's not like there's nothing taking place, but it's nothing like what we need, which is regular screening at intervals like first, third, fifth, and eighth grade, so we don't miss students who need some help.
Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you, Representative. We're going to attempt to see if we are we in with you, Representative Wade? Are you there?
Hey, guys, can y'all hear me? See me?
Stand by a second, Representative Wade. We are attempting something different.
All right.
There you go. We found you. You are on mic, Representative Wade.
Well, thank you very much, and I appreciate the discussion and all of the comments and questions. To be brief, which is not my strength, I've got two quick questions. One, over the last 2 decades, we've seen a great increase in the number of students that have been, I guess, that are being raised by single parents, or the grandparent or grandparents are the primary provider to and from school for students. Do we know if there's any data or studies that show an increase of absenteeism for those students in those situations?
I don't have that data.
You don't have that data.
No.
He said he didn't have that data. We
All right.
can work, get that data for you though, Representative Wade.
All right. I know Dawson County, when we went through probably about that 05, 06, 07, where we were building the community, we were seeing that specific group of students were struggling more. Oftentimes it had to do with the grandparents' health or parents' health as to whether or not they would come to school, and they weren't utilizing the school buses. So that was, we went through a local effort to try to turn the tide in that. The last question I have is, I've got a great concern about the fact that in Georgia, this is a local and state issue. We don't have a nurse in every single school, no matter the total size of the school. Like, there are lots of schools that literally have no nurse at all. They have one nurse for 4 elementary schools. Do you think that if we as a state could get to one nurse in every school, that would also be a way to identify kids more quickly, keep health issues from getting worse, and improve a reduction in absenteeism?
I would say this, that adding a school nurse to every school in Georgia would be one of the most important things that the state could do, not only for student attendance, it'd be for student health while students are in school. It would aid teachers. We talk about teacher training, but what teachers need to know also is that they have a resource they can go to during the school day. So I don't think we could have a better investment in the state of Georgia than to put a school nurse in every school.
All right, thank you very much. I agree. Hopefully we can work together, and this committee can, guide the House and the Senate to also partner with school systems to fund a big chunk of it locally, but also the state to help as well. So appreciate that, and thank you for the questions, Mr. Chairman. I'll continue to listen in.
Great. Thank you, Floor Leader Wade. Let's check with, do we have Representative Glaze? Is she online?
Yes, I'm online.
There
Can you hear
go.
me?
Yes, we do, and we're going to turn the microphone over to you if you have questions, Representative Glaze.
Well, good morning, Chairman Irwin and my colleagues. It's a pleasure. Thank you, Dr. McGivney. We appreciate your report this morning. And I want to go back to your early intervention and the strategies that you talked about under there. You had a transition support specialist. Do you believe, or is there indication that transition support specialists would be helpful? And how helpful would they be if we had those inside of our elementary schools to help our students as they transition between the classes as well as between grades?
It's a good question because we did find out that the transition is more of a problem than a lot of people realize. We take it for granted that going from one grade level to the next grade level is just normal and typical. But for some students, making that transition is very difficult. Transitioning from just one class to the next class, transitioning down the hallway to another part of the building. Things that we take for granted that you're referring to as transition, more and more schools are recognizing that some students need an individualized transition plan. And they're finding that that's been very effective. And so they're expanding the use of that to develop individualized transition plans. And some schools have found that it's more than just a few students, it's several students that have those issues. So they're developing a school-wide transition plan.
Well, thank you so much for speaking to that. And then last, I would ask, is there any desegregation of the data that would identify students who are in basically a homeless status, meaning that they're living with a family member, a friend, living in a hotel, or even living in a car, that their attendance is desegregated so that that population can be targeted by our social workers?
Yeah, well, you're exactly right. And that's another reason why the work of the social workers is so important, is because schools can refer those children I think are homeless or who are having housing issues. It doesn't necessarily mean they're homeless, but they're still having housing issues, which of course affects their attendance. And so that again speaks to the importance of the social worker.
And last but not least, would you speak to the issue, if you can, of the dropout rate, the dropout age in Georgia being 16, and is that an impact on the status of absenteeism?
Yes, absenteeism, if I understand your question correctly, is directly related to the graduation rate. And what's interesting is that third grade reading proficiency data shows that there is a correlation between reading third grade proficiency levels and high school graduation rates later on. Now, there's some disconnect. It appears to be a disconnect at some point between the data of third grade reading proficiency level and increasing high school graduation rates. But what we don't realize is students do make the transition and can be developed into effective readers if they have intervention along the way. And a lot of what we're talking about is those interventions through like MTSS can help students overcome some of the issues they face every day. Life is difficult for a lot of our students, and the more we can help them through recognizing where they are and where they're coming from, the better we're able to serve them and better their attendance will be.
And I want to thank you again. I believe our dropout rate is directly related to our dropout age. 16 has a lot of impact on our absenteeism rate. And I'm wondering if a kid drops out at 15 and a half, are all the rest of those days included as days of absenteeism before he or she drops out at 16? So I'm just wondering how that data might be impacting this high absenteeism rate. Love to look at how our 16-year-old dropout rate may even affect this absenteeism rate in the state.
Representative, yes, good question, good comment there, that whether they're considered in the data once they're a dropout. And in the DOE can help us get that information, I believe, to you. So Thank you, Representative Glaze and Dr. McGivney. Fantastic presentation, great answers to our question, and thanks for your guidance so far.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
We're going to continue to move on without a break here. I know we've been going a little over an hour right now, but let's continue with another one. We just received some very good responses back. So in other words, very good questions. Thank y'all for digging into this topic. I'm very motivated by it. More students learning more should be our goal. And members, thank you for your participation in our first. Justin Hill, if you would, come on up from the DOE. Let's get your computer going and get you set up, and then we'll get your presentation. And DOE, thank you for what you already do, tracking this and trying to help systems through their chronic absenteeism the best they can. I know the information you have provided is very enlightening to me. I'm sure it will be for the members too. Members, you might not even be aware that there's a dashboard that you're going to get a chance to view and look at and spend some time on. And I'm sure it'll give us quite a bit of guidance. But Justin, if you would introduce yourself, your title, and then we'll turn it all over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Justin Hill, Deputy Superintendent for the Office of Whole Child Supports at the Georgia Department of Education. And inside our office, we have two divisions. One division is our Safe and Healthy Schools, and then the other division is our MTSS PBIS that was mentioned earlier division, helping schools problem solve through many things like chronic absenteeism.
Good. Thank you.
Today, I want to go over some of the statewide data that we have, some trends that we're seeing, broadly speaking, go over the dashboard, a tool that we developed last year for districts, some things that we're seeing out in the field. I'll certainly spotlight one district that might represent several others that are experiencing some successes, and also what the agency is doing to combat this. Of course, this is not something the agency does alone, but in concert with many, many partners, but we'll go over some of the things that we're doing. To define chronic absenteeism, which we mentioned earlier, before Senate Bill 123, we really just had a federal definition. Now this is Georgia's definition of chronic absenteeism. And again, we're looking at those that are unexcused and excused, just looking at the phenomenon of why students are missing at such high rates since COVID. Does attendance matter? I think we heard from Dr. McGivney's presentation. Of course, it very much matters. And in person matters even more. When a student misses 2 days a month, again, we're not just looking at just chronic, but even at 2 days a month on average, 20 days a year, that's going to mean 30 hours of missed math instruction, 60 hours of reading and writing. If that started from kindergarten and was a routine pattern until graduation, they're missing an entire year of school through their experience. That's a lot. Double that up a little bit. 4 days, 60 hours of math, 40 days a year, 120 hours of reading and writing, and 2 years of graduation. Again, if that pattern were to be experienced since kindergarten. So does attendance matter? Well, there's clearly a relationship between attendance and achievement. And from this graph here, this is just from 2024 from our milestones test. And this looks pretty similar to 2023, but twice as many students perform at the proficient learner for those who are regularly present compared to those that are chronically out. Buttresses the things that we heard earlier, but this is certainly of a concern for the state. We are seeing some promising progress. So that Georgia's rate, you'll see, really got to 2022, 23.9%. And it is at a small but certainly steady decline at a 9.5%. This is 2005 data, so this is fresh data. We're really making sure that we got all the data in from 2025 for the committee hearing. So I'll go over some things that might contribute. Minimize this screen and kind of go over a dashboard, because this screenshot is from a dashboard. And again, this was a collaborative effort with Dr. Keith Osborne and Technology Services to try to build a tool, because districts out there, they want the DOE to certainly show them the way. But one of the things that has always been a trouble, and I see we have two former superintendents, give me a tool to help me look at my own data so I can start to problem solve and to see how can I make this big data set a little bit smaller.
Let me, before you switch off this screen, members, and if for a person that is colorblind of greens and blues, looking at your chart on there, I'm assuming the bluer is better attendance.
Yes, sir.
The orange or that color is more of a worse, not more absenteeism. You can then look at your district members, also look at what is occurring around your district, how you compare. I think that will give you an opportunity when you're looking at this to have conversation with your superintendents there. I know looking at it for myself, I immediately zoned into the 4 systems that I represent for a conversation piece. Thank you.
Sure. We wanted to try to make a heat map kind of concept, not only just statewide when you first glance at this splash page, but even when you go into a school's subgroups, really look at a heat map and to kind of see where the dangers are, to really draw your attention. Not only is this a tool for school users, but this is a public facing dashboard. So the community and parents, they can also look at this dashboard as easily as a school principal or a school superintendent. Let's see if I can minimize this screen. Or actually, I might be able to just pull up the dashboard live. All right, this is on our Georgia Insights page. And I'm going to just walk through a couple features. And I'm going to start to my left. And I saw there were some questions from the earlier segment session. So you'll see that you can select all students. I can go to economically disadvantaged for the state average. And I can kind of see that average there for a statewide glance. I can pick any subgroup that I wish. If I want to look at my students of color and look at an average, I can look at different school years. I can look at students with disabilities, students with IEPs. Again, it gives me a heat map on the left, but also gives me a bar graph to look at progress pre-COVID and certainly up to 2025. I can click a specific system, go to Appling, and it'll just highlight that one. I can do the overall average. I can do a statewide, all students. Again, these are just things that certainly you can imagine a school superintendent trying to communicate with the school board. What are we dealing with? How prevalent is this issue? And it really begins with the state really entering into a partnership to give good tools to our district leaders. We don't want to leave our principals out as well, so we can also go to schools. We can click on a system. We can go to Baldwin County. We can go to Baldwin High School, and we can toggle into and look at the 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, 12th grade. Again, kind of a heat map, and see that certainly they see the whatever they're doing in Baldwin at this high school. The rate is good for 12th grade, but certainly you see some troubling areas in their freshman classes over time. But we do see some improvements, which is good. But this just enables a school principal, and I'll walk through how a local superintendent has been using this dashboard to drive improvements. We also have another subgroup here. And the reason we have it labeled like this, you heard MTSS and PBI several times. If you look at the way the graphs are, it's almost like a triangle. So just draw a triangle, and there's that blue. That should be the green area. Those kids that should really be the goal, to be 80%. 80% of the students should be there every day, pretty much all the time. And we want to see that orange is really that red. That's at risk. It should really be 5%. But this kind of gives some of those tools. And I'll walk you through how districts use this. Okay. All right. One of the things I use the heat map, and I want to draw your attention to, is that, and we're still studying this, but the high school rates, something has happened post-COVID. It's a phenomenon, and that the rates still hover over 25% with not much movement at the high school. Why is this occurring? Loss of school or the loss of the importance of being at school every day in person, the virtual making up school days, students going to work and missing it. Certainly, one of the top 7 reasons in our new school climate survey that students report why they miss school is they're tired. So does this mean that extending or starting the school day in high schools should be more of a 9 o'clock start date? Certainly something that school superintendents and principals should consider. But this is one of the ways that you can use this dashboard in conjunction with perhaps maybe survey data. All right, we asked our some of our IT folks at the agency to kind of, of course, we have 54 combinations of schools. We have, K2, K3s, K4s, K5s. We have traditional 6/8s, but we try to lump them into elementary, middle, and high school and try to look at trends over time. The good news is that our elementary schools, the rate of decline looks good and steady. And in a couple of years, we hope that this is going to be at pre-COVID levels. However, again, as I talked about high schools, the rate of decline is really slow, and we still hover at 27.7%. Middle school is a little bit better, but these are some of the trends that we're noticing over time. Title I, where a large percentage of the families are economically disadvantaged. Is there a difference between our Title I schools in Georgia and our non-Title I? Well, there is. 23.7% compared to 15.4% for non-Title I schools. So again, today is just to give you some overview trend data to kind of see what Georgia's picture looks like. Is there a difference between urban and rural? I think this question came up earlier. We do see there to be a difference. In the urban settings, the chronic absenteeism rate is 25.3%. It has been going down, and that's good news, but it's still far above what we see in our rural districts and schools. Are there some districts out there that are starting to beat the odds? Well, there are, and that's the good news. One of the things that the dashboard lets us know is the districts that have stories to tell. So a couple weeks ago, I drove to Somerville, Georgia. If you're not familiar with where that is, it's about 30 minutes north of Rome. And I sat with a very new superintendent, Dr. Michelle Healy, and I said, I've looked at the dashboard. I see that you all have a 42.2% as a high water mark. I said, that's really troubling. You just finished your first year, and I noticed that you went from 31.9% to 17.8%. And she was, of course, waiting to see her 25 data because she knew that she had put some things in place. And I said, well, what would you attribute the change? She said, well, I put about 3 things in place, but there's many more things that we want to do. She said, one of the things we did was we took out of the general funds and hired a part-time truancy officer, but don't let that title really, hang you up, because it's not someone that was there preparing court cases for the juvenile judge. It was someone that was a former principal. We revamped the title, and this person spent more of their time in the car driving to homes, doing just the retail business of talking to families, and then also coordinating activities with one point person at every single school, and they have 5 schools. And so then this became a priority. I said, well, what else do you? And I looked on her desk, and she had printouts of multiple things from the dashboard. She goes, the dashboard helped me to perform what I would call data digs focused on attendance. We always have test data, but we never really had this robust type of attendance data. So in conjunction with this and the truancy officer concept, also there's some things that she really focused on safety and hiring a part-time safety person, because we see a correlation between students that report that they're safe at school and that their chronic absenteeism is lower. And so those things that she put in place, she also enabled her to do data digs and find out, and this was some questions in the earlier session. She found out that Somerville did not have a single laundromat in the entire town, whereas she was living in Rome at the time until she moved up to Somerville. She goes, there are like 4 really nice laundromats. So is access to laundry services and just the healthy things, and she said, yeah, that's something that's on our task force. It's like, what are the barriers of why that we can get this rate even further? So that's just some of the things that this local superintendent is doing. But it really harkens back to when I first joined the agency, where you had a lot of efforts from school districts focused on attendance, with folks that are really had attendance officers at a lot of the school districts. And maybe it's time to resurrect some of that again. So what does work? Some of the things that Dr. McGivney mentioned, I'm going to kind of summarize here as well. I'll put them in 3 categories. Removing and reducing barriers. to learning. I put this in the high cost but high impact category, and that focus on transportation, access to healthcare, housing, basic needs. For example, a school district may want to invest in putting a school-based health center on site in an elementary school because this might combat chronic absenteeism. Certainly in Dublin City Schools, Superintendent Fred Williams is studying this. Actually, he's part of the Get Georgia Reading campaign cabinet, and they're actually studying this issue with school-based health centers. But that's a high cost, but it also has a high impact. Hiring someone at 49% from the general funds, that's a high cost, but it has a high impact. Adding more school social workers, that's a high cost, but it has a high impact because someone needs to do the door-to-door visits. Adding a school nurse, as mentioned earlier, high cost, but it has a high impact. Maximizing school and family community partnerships, also extremely effective. The biggest bang for the buck, though, would be my middle category here, improving school experiences in school. I'd call this school climate. So positive school climate is a destination. The positive behavior intervention and supports framework is kind of a vehicle to take you to that destination. So having more school climate specialists and having staff to help people walk through how to improve their climate, it's a good bang for the buck. Incentives for free bicycles for coming to school, not very effective. It sounds good, but that's not exactly why students are missing school. Also, Attendance Works would say, and certainly we would agree with them, that you must take a tiered approach. You heard that earlier. Focus on prevention and early intervention. So we don't want to wait till January and look at the dashboard and say the rate looks bad. You want to look at your data even earlier than that. Who's already missed 2 to 3 days and it's already October? This is a concern, and we want to understand why students are absent. I'll harken back to my comments with Chattooga. One of the things they discovered is they have their school calendar or their school week is Tuesday through Friday. And they used to have virtual makeup days, and they realized there's no substitute for in-person attendance. And they turned their Mondays into makeup days, but they had to be in person. And of course, then that meant that transportation had to be involved. Again, high cost, but high impact. And these would be the 3 approaches I'd place in here. Research tells us, and this is what this graphic shows us, is that when you spend time removing barriers, again, that's the high investment cost, but it does prove to be effective. The biggest one is improving student experiences, and that's going to be kind of in the middle ground. But the things of just nudging parents and nudging kids, reminding them the importance, or tweeting, those kind of things, they can help. But it's a low cost, but it's a low impact. So what are some of the things that the agency is doing to help combat this? Again, we can't do it by ourselves, but I want to highlight some of the things that we've been doing. One, we held a summit last December to kind of draw attention amongst 31 agencies and other professional learning organizations in combination with Attendance Works to help us partner and talk with our other colleagues and say, how can we collectively raise the awareness, collectively goal set to make sure that chronic absenteeism is a collective unified effort. And certainly we're going to have another one of these this December as well. We did a public service announcement with Georgia Public Broadcasting. One of their main constituents is parents. So we went down and had a film crew go to Clayton County at MD Roberts Middle School and filmed a positive climate. What is the good reason to come to school? And the reason we did this was really to model from the agency's point of view that districts could put this public service announcement on their homepage and direct parents to it, use it for parent night. And again, something that a district may not have the capability of entering into a contract with GPB, but the DOE could, and then we can share that for free. We applied for a grant called the Stronger Connections Grant. It's a federal grant. We were awarded $500,000 for 3 years. And this is going to help the agency build our capacity. We entered into an agreement or working arrangement with Carl Vincent to help us study our data even further. So some of the questions that the committee is asking, Carl Vincent can help us dig through the data and help us with that. Also, to help us continue our efforts with Attendance Works for future training and technical assistance for ourselves and also for the districts that we're supporting. On the left, this will be a continuation of things we've done in the past several years, but we have a fall webinar series to make sure that we're making ourselves available. with thought partners with our schools and districts that are struggling with attendance, and that they can have access to the kind of coaching that they need to improve. On the right, you'll see that we, because of our grant, we have a high needs meeting or technical assistance event on October the 30th at Middle Georgia State University. Certainly, any of the members are welcome to attend. And we're going to try to give some one-on-one coaching to school teams to help them turn their data around. The school climate surveys that you heard earlier, one of the things that we wanted to do at the agency is to give districts more actionable data so they can dig through it. If they know that school climate, improving school climate, is a recipe for improving their school attendance, then we need to give them better data with better answers. So, for example, we have uncovered already with some of the new data that there is a direct correlation when students report feeling safe, that their chronic absenteeism numbers are lower. They also report, as mentioned a little bit earlier, that when the trusted adult that was mentioned by Dr. McGivney, we have a bank of questions that talk about student and staff relationships being positive. When it's reported to be high, chronic absenteeism is proportionally reported to be lower. When that's good news. We're also launching a Classroom Conversations podcast series, which is a way to have teachers and principals focus on solution development. And we're partnering with School of Nutrition because we know nutrition is also part of the solution. And our follow-up attendance summit, really focusing on agency alignment, kind of an all of government approach. It's going to be at the Towers versus Microsoft, December 8th, coming up this winter. So there's a lot of things that we have in place, a lot of things we're doing, but today's presentation will give you a little high-level overview of some of the data trends, some of the partnerships and strategies that are being employed, and also some things that the agency is doing about it. At this time, I'd like to take any questions if you have any.
Great, good presentation, and I want to thank DOE for making this a priority that I can tell with obviously the long history y'all have at trying to deal with this. So, of absenteeism. The dashboard, is there any indication or do you have any data about its use by the systems? Do they have individuals that regularly upload information to y'all and then thus view the dashboard? I'm trying to figure out how effective that dashboard is to the system.
Now, we certainly can get you data on how often it's accessed. We could certainly run numbers on how many unique visitors, or just like someone will go to a web page. We can get that for you. They're not uploading information as much as we're taking the information that's signed off by the superintendent at that June and then rushing it into the dashboard to make sure we have that. There are other upgrades that we want to put onto the dashboard. Some of the slides that we have to give it some additional toggling for district leaders. So there's more enhancements that we expect to see. For example, looking at a regional. I know that we have the data broken down by RISAs. So we have each RISA, we can give you a rate, a cumulative rate for all the districts, and we want to be sure that we add that to the dashboard as well. But we can give you the numbers.
And that leads me also to, the systems, I would hope, already know where they're at, and where and the dashboard would help them know where they're at to other systems, comparative. So if their neighbor is doing much better than them, they could pick up the phone and call and say, what are y'all doing different that's causing your attendance to be so much better?
Well, Mr. Chairman, that was one of the requests that we received from a district in First District RISA, and said, well, it's great to see how we compare to the state average, but I'd like to see how I compare to my neighbors. And so one of the things that we think will be ready by August, at least by Labor Day, we're hoping to have it, and that is a regional, so that someone can toggle and say, this is me versus the state average, but what is my regional average? It may help. If you're in Savannah, Chatham, you're going to be different than if you were in Bullock. But it might, if you're in Bullock, you might want to compare yourself to Evans. So
yeah. I think a dashboard is very important, and it definitely important to us, I would say, to understand the information But I would hope that systems are using that type of information. Number one, they're pulling it for themselves. Number two, they're comparing to a like neighbor, so that if there is the opportunity to mimic some good stuff that is going on in the neighbor's system, you could do that. We're very good in education of sharing. So, I often brag on our farmers. They might be the best sharers of good techniques of any profession that we have. But our teachers are right there with them. And, so dashboard, let me start down here. Rick, I'm gonna give you the opportunity to ask some questions.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Thanks, Justin. Appreciate your presentation. Very informative for sure. Some of the notes I kind of caught hold and kind of believed in already. You mentioned like attendance officers, people, systems seem to do well if they really make it important and have somebody tracking it, whether it's a social workers or attendance officers. I think that's key. I think the dashboard's another resource that you talked about. I guess the question for me is, maybe you have that right answer for it, is we've seen the high school graduation rate soar the past few years. Part of it in the past few years because of the way we calculated the 9 high schools when they transferred to a regional 9 high school. I know that changed a little the past year or two. And so do you see, a system has a 99% graduation rate, and then all of a sudden their attendance rates and the 30% miss 10 days or more. Is there any kind of correlation? I mean, has any research been done, or do you have any answers for that? Dichotomy it's totally different. Doesn't make sense. It doesn't add up, but it happens.
No, there's some phenomenon data that we're studying, and I'd say that's one of those.
Okay. Yeah, I'm still trying to figure that one out. Accountability for schools or systems. I know throughout the years are different ways of people trying that. Is there any certain accountability for schools in the ratings? Whether what type, A school or B school, or whatever else?
Well, we have the STAR climate rating, and the STAR climate rating was on a hiatus after COVID, but it's live now. And last year was the first year that we brought that back as accountability system to a degree. It's not accountable like it's part of the CCRPI. It's on the page, but it's a public recognition of this is what we think your climate is. Now, anecdotally, knowing that this is now a public item, that you're going to be ranked as a 5-star or 1-star, and attendance is part of that equation, is that certainly something that's in the consciousness of principals and district leaders? Yeah, I think so. Well, we certainly want to pay attention to it with the STAR climate rating, bringing that, and also with the dashboard.
Okay, yeah, because that's going to be, if you're not held accountable for it, you're not going to make it important. And that's kind of,
That's correct. I mean, and again, attendance and chronic absenteeism rate is part of the equation. And so because that again factors into, do you have a positive school climate? What is your STAR rating? Suspensions were mentioned earlier. That's also part of that. And so we think the STAR climate rating is a way to look at where you're at and ways that you can improve. And then our office, we're really dedicated to on-site coaching to help you move that needle.
Good. Thank you.
Sure.
Carmen.
Thank you very much. I appreciate this. I do have a question as I am, we talked about how the beginning, those outcomes, so important, pre-K through 3rd grade for our literacy rate, and how that literacy rate is affecting our older students in high school. And so trying to correct that on the front end, that's what I'm looking at right now. Doing that, I was noticing the chart we looked at earlier, a substantially high pre-K absenteeism rate, which definitely affects our numbers on both ends of the chart, right? So, and I know in previous recent sessions, we've done so much to support pre-K. And so do we still have waiting list in pre-K? What is it looking like? And my second question to that is, there are a lot of, parents, grandparents out there that pre-K was considered, just a good idea. Kids learn to take naps and stay in, color and do this. And now we have a much more rigorous curriculum. And how do we educate the grandparents and the parents on the importance of their attendance in these programs that we're funding at an early age?
I can't really, I appreciate the question. I can't really speak much to the pre-K since the DOE has K-12. DeKalb and right from the start, maybe a future meeting that can provide some data and see what kind of trends that they're seeing. I'm not sure what they're collecting. I know that if you look at the kindergarten rate on the dashboard, kindergarten still remains troubling as an entry point, just as high school. We're seeing at first grade and some of the other grades, the chronic absenteeism is getting better, but at kindergarten, it's still pronounced. So I would say that you can deduct or deduce that the pre-K may be seeing some of the same trends.
Right, right. You're right about that. And so I will follow up on the pre-K, but yes, the kindergarten, it was only about 2% difference. So yes, if we can get these students corrected on that side, I think we're going to see the results, trickle down to all, to every grade level. So thank you. I appreciate it.
Yes, ma'am.
There we go. Thank you. Representative Sandy?
Yes, so I just have one question. I really appreciate this website, and I'm looking forward to the regional comparisons because our area is very dense. It's going to be, Gwinnett's, Forsyth, Fulton, those. What is the regional area considered? Is it counties? Or would it be larger than that?
It would be the counties.
Perfect.
I mean, we're going to have some of the city systems in there, but if you want to try to regionally break, really looking at membership to the RESAs is one of the easiest ways for districts to kind of look how they're look at their RESA rate. And that's going to be one of the easiest ways especially when you think about how RESAs have their school improvement specialist aligned inside those RESAs to help for them to look at how their RESA looks and look at the members. That's going to really help those climate specialists.
Very good. Thank you.
I'm going to flip over, if I can, to our two members that are online here in Zoom with us. We'll begin with Representative Wade, Floor Leader Wade. Are you with us? Are you still connected?
No, I'm here, just trying to get my next destination. Sorry about that. I think that the one question that I would have is what I asked before, related to when they're stratifying the information related to which students are seeing the highest amounts of absenteeism or even increases. Did they have any data regarding those students that are in single parent or grandparents as the primary caregivers? I'm just curious if they're seeing any correlations there.
I appreciate the question. The DOE is not collecting data as to the parent breakdown or the family breakdown of the child. We don't collect it that way.
Okay.
There may be some research out in the field, some of the universities that we can certainly canvass to see if someone has done some research in that specific area.
All right. Well, and I think with the social workers, that they know kind of those situations probably from their own individual caseloads. And I've heard this question has been formulated by feedback or the local social workers or at my general, district and a couple of neighboring communities. So that's why I wanted to know, should we be asking that question? And should that be another data point for what DOE is, researching and studying? So not dictating that you should. I'm hearing that question a lot, and they're seeing it in the field.
I would comment anecdotally. I mean, when I was with Dr. Healy, she did mention that as an item of concern, and that is the different variations of families, and then attaching that to lack of transportation, like only one car, or missing a bus, and can't get to school, and it's always the same group of students. And certainly there's challenges within that family structure.
Gotcha. Okay, Floor Leader Wade, is that all from you? You might have cut out on us. Is that it?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That's it for now. I want to read the data more and may just, at a future meeting or offline have some other questions. But very good presentation.
Thank you. All right, Representative Glaze. Lydia, are you there?
Yes, I am. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Hill. I just have just a question that maybe you can put it in better context for me. When we're talking about removing and reducing barriers, we had the high cost, high impact. You gave us three major areas: housing and health, and adding social workers, and then adding nurses. If you were asked to put that in order of its highest impact, how would you rate those three areas of removing and reducing barriers?
That's a tough one. I'm not sure if I have the research that says which one outranks the other one in a rank order precedence, for which one gives me the biggest, impact of those three. And some of those areas, it may really be dependent on the district and where the problem lies. In some places, you might see that they have a school nurse or a school social worker with a caseload that, is manageable. And another place, it may be different. So I don't think I can give you an answer of which one is the number one.
Okay. Well, thank you for at least giving me what might hinder that. And the last question, in Dr. McGivney's report, he talked about the health of students, and especially in lower grades, around asthma and diabetes, and how impactful that was on higher absenteeism rates. So I just wanted to see if you had any data that desegregated that particular barrier as an issue for our elementary and maybe even high school, since that's where we're having the most absent or the highest absenteeism rate.
That's a great question. I don't have any, data that we have at the agency that shows that specific area. I don't disagree with Dr. McGivney's assessment.
Well,
Yeah,
I'd love to see more information on how that might even be improved based on some of your success stories. I was really glad that you put a success story in there, but maybe there's some others around the health of children and how reducing that barrier could really reduce absenteeism. But thank you for your report. I appreciate it and look forward to more information.
great. Thank you, Representative Glaze. Let's see if we can turn over. Justin, thank you very much. Good information. Know that we want the DOE to stay very engaged with this committee with information. Matt, I see you out there. Know we would love to be able to send questions, see what data you have that could help guide us as we go through this process over the next 4 or 5 months.
I did have two answers from previous questions that were unanswered. I do have, the representative was asking about homeless, and I guess it's not on the screen anymore. But on the dashboard, we do have a homeless subcategory, so you can check the rates for the state for the homeless category. And I think for 2025, it's 21.6%. I think earlier someone also asked the reasons why kids were missing, and we have that data through our school climate survey, and I can offer that up as well. Our number one reason of why students report that they miss school is being sick without going to the doctor. Number two is they're going to the doctor for scheduled appointments. Number three is bad weather. 4 is a school scheduled event like a field trip. Family vacation seems to be the next one. So, and it's high at with elementary schools. So they're taking family vacation during the school day. That's not helpful. Family emergency, that's not expected. And then the last in the top 7, too tired. And that's reported highest amongst high school students. So anyway, those are the top 7 reasons why students report that they miss school.
Okay. It's good to hear. All right. Again, Justin, DOE, thank you very much. Appreciate the information and being here to educate us on this topic. And also good job of communicating this, having the dashboard and putting the information out there for our viewing or for the whole state of Georgia, for that matter, for the whole nation to look at. So let's go on. Members, if you can, we're right on schedule. I was going to take a little break, but can we drive forward? Is that okay? And we'll get our third and final presentation in then. You come on up to the podium, Miss Lewis, if you would, and we're going to bring communities and schools for Georgia, and being present matters, and her presentation. If you would, Miss Lewis, come up and, as the others did, introduce yourself, your title, your role, and then we'll turn the podium over to you. And it's, I believe, do we got your program up there running? Yes, I believe we do. Microphone's yours.
I'm always afraid to touch the little
Button.
good morning, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, members of the committee. I am Carol Lewis, President and CEO of Communities and Schools Georgia. I have served Communities and Schools. This is my 25th year at the state organization and my 31st year as part of Communities and Schools, beginning as a volunteer. So I've seen a little bit of everything across the board. And it's amazing what you can do when you start when you're 12. I am joined this morning by Fred Stanley, our program manager and former lead site coordinator from Troup County, who will help me, one, to answer any questions that you have, but also provide you with, I think, a rounder and more full view of what Communities and Schools is. We've heard some great information from Dr. McGivney, the amazing new dashboard that the department has developed, which we use, and we have also been a partner, and I think hopefully a competent partner for the department for many years. No.
Oh, there it goes.
Okay. Our mission with Communities and Schools, this is around students with a community of support, empowering them to stay in school and improve and achieve in life. It's just some of the basic things that we want, every person wants for their children. I'm a parent of 3 and a parent of a teacher that teaches both math and science in Cobb County. And I'm, like many of you, go to the practitioners for information. But just give you a really brief overview of who we are. Communities and Schools. We are a national organization, a part of a national organization that had its early beginnings here in Georgia with a program called Project PreK-12, which morphed into Exodus and later became Cities and Schools and then Communities and Schools, but went national with the Carter administration. And since that time, we have become, I think we're inching out North Carolina for the second largest network in the country here in Georgia. The CIS is the largest practitioner of integrated student support services, or what we call wraparound support services. And we serve 29 states in the District of Columbia. But what we do is that we work to empower students to confront to confront and overcome personal challenges of instructional barriers, things that happen outside the classroom, but also the things that happen within the classroom, so that they can take charge of their future that they want to have for themselves, their community, and for each other. We always have believed in personal responsibility, but CIS has grown from small academy model programs to serving over 3,000 schools across the country and over 245 schools here in the state of Georgia. And it's actually 246 because we also do 2 school community-based programs. And we work hand in hand with both our parents, our families, our caregivers, taking access, helping to access important resources, and sometimes even having to create resources for students and to support their success. This is just a really quick snapshot of who we are across the state of Georgia and our reach. CIS has 16 independent organizations. They're independent 501c3. As I said, we are a nonprofit organization working in partnerships with our school districts and with also our State Department of Education and other agencies. Under the state organization, we have 18 subsidiary organizations serving 40 counties. I believe it's now 41 counties, in 46 school districts, 214 schools, and 2 community-based sites. And just some of the key outcomes of communities and schools. We also provide a report every year to our Department of Education, and I will provide that. I'll send that to you, Mr. Chairman, so that you have a full picture of what that looks like. But we deliver integrated student support services or wraparound support services to nearly 119,000 students annually, including 8,950 students that are case managed. That means that these are very focused, very targeted interventions provided to those students. And 72% of the students that we serve, we improve their absenteeism. 72% of those students have improved chronically absent because our students are referred to us through 3 major areas: attendance, grades, or behavior. And we also work in partnership with our parents. So we are getting those students who are most at risk for school failure, and usually around one of those 3 areas. But we do a very focused approach. We provide school-wide support services to improve, and for those students that are case managed, we provide support services for improving academic performance, which you've seen an improvement of 77%, over 77% in academic improvement, over 88% show better behavior. And 98% of our high school students stay in school, and a 95% promotion rate for our elementary and middle school students. So what do we do? How do we do this work? It is communities and schools. As I said, we are part of a national organization, but our focus has been always to ensure that every student, no matter where they live, no matter what their zip code, no matter if they're rural, urban, suburban, whether their parents have resources or whether their parents don't, because we get students across the board. But we primarily focus on Title I schools as a priority, as that's typically where our greatest needs are. But we know that what they need is to realize their potential, but the only way they can do that is that they have to be present. We launched Being Present Matters in fall of 2024, where we've looked at across the country, over 15 million students were chronically absent in the U.S. Georgia faced a chronic absenteeism crisis with over 20% of its students missing 10 days, 10% or more of school. That's over 350,000 students. We always say 20%, what's that? Doesn't sound as high, because if I could lose 20% of my body weight, I could probably reduce my BMI. But 20% of our students is 350,000 students. That's larger than some of our cities. And so we talk about root causes. We can go really look across the data, but what we've seen is that students are not showing up to school because of basic needs. In one of our communities, it was something as simple as clean clothes, hygiene products, and you could almost track it to the time of the month, or not having access to just something really simple and basic as having a clean shirt or clean uniform, or having a uniform, or having to share with siblings, those types of things. I know that it was mentioned about transportation in many of our rural areas. If you miss the bus, there is no one there, either parents gone to work or there is no transportation. So you've missed a day in school. Trauma. Coming out of COVID, our children have experienced major trauma. And so one of the things that we have found, one of the major things is loss of family members during COVID. Parents, siblings, grandparents, or having been displaced, not only from where you live, but also maybe having to move to a totally different city. And where do you fit in? You know, if you're a high school student, you have to find your social group early and you stick with them across the board. Think back to your own high school career. Elementary schools, it is, sometimes as parents, just not being able to manage getting kids to school, missing a bus and not having that transportation. Housing and food insecurity. When you lose a job and you lose a place to live, that's instability. Also, many of our students were locked in during COVID with their abusers. So they're coming out of that with trauma, major trauma. Food insecurities, every single CIS organization that we work with either partners with a food bank or food program to be able to provide food for the weekends or additional food for siblings at home. Also, the lack of technology. As my son tells me, I'm very first world because I'm only Android user in my family. But many of our students don't have access to internet or competent internet services, or have to share one laptop with every sibling in their household. No access to mental health and physical health supports. These things keep coming up over and over and over again. But it's not just not having the services, it's also not having the practitioners to provide the services. And then we're also looking at households that are responsible for our children. High school students, many times, or middle school students are responsible for taking care of childcare for their siblings, or they're having to go and contribute economically to the family's well-being. So they have an economic need to work, either leave school, or they work the third shift position, they work some type of job, or have to leave school early to work. And as they say, they're tired because they worked a full-time job to be able to provide for family services. Are there any questions? Because if not, I will turn it over to my colleague to talk about our solution.
I just want to say, thank you. We've got community schools in our district and they do a great job down there. I think we talked before, and I'm just really impressed with what you guys do. And I can speak for Glenn County.
Yeah.
It's definitely helped Glenn County schools and in our community.
Thank you. Thank you for your support.
Yep. Right there.
How are you notified from the schools? Do the schools reach out to you? Does the family reach out to you?
If we're looking at expanding into a district, typically we will have a champion that either the superintendent will request the communities and schools serve their schools. Many times we get requests from principals. We've also received requests from parents who would like to see CIS. Bullock County just reached out recently. I actually had a funder reach out to us about bringing some communities and schools to Barrow County. And then others, so we do a referral because we are a nonprofit. We are a third party that's going in partnership with schools. Our Department of Education has asked us to target very specific school sites in different districts. So we take referrals from both the state, our local community, and also our school districts. But we have to have permission from the local district in order to be able to go into a school, any school site.
And are you so your funding is not coming from the school, it's coming from other entities?
Our funding comes from both, we're a legislative line item currently. We have a partnership, the school's expected to invest in bringing communities and schools in, and then we have private partners, both corporate and foundation. And many of our independent organizations also do fundraising. They do local fundraising events to be able to pay for CIS. So it's a public-private partnership.
Last question. Do you tie in with the community? Do you reach out to churches and other groups, or are you just a standalone?
No, we work in partnership with the resources that exist within a community. Because I'm from Troup County, just up the road from Muskogee, but when we think about communities and schools, and I just think about that one district's investment, the school invests, Callaway Foundation invests, Kia invest. Now, maybe both the time and talent they're doing right now, I think a school supply drive, so that we run, as a CIS organization, we run, school supply closets in every school, make sure those investments are there for teachers when they need them right now, because it's great at the beginning of the year, but come January, there's not a pencil in sight. Also, the investment comes from the school district, from our local civic organizations, from churches who will adopt a school, and then CIS supports that, their investments. We also vet volunteers. We vet, because everybody wants to get inside of a school. The expectation is that that's not necessarily a quality product, because you can fire volunteers. I believe that if they're not doing what they say they're going to do, you fire. We do signed agreements, and people commit, and you track what that commitment is and what the dosage of those services are.
Thank you.
And let me ask a question, Ms. Lewis, too, if I could. The site coordinator, obviously spending a lot of time with the at-risk student, the absenteeism. What about with the parents? How much time would that site coordinator be spending with parents?
We contact every parent of every child that we serve, and some children don't live with their parents, so it may be a caregiver. That child's in foster
Right.
care, or they're living with a grandparent or a sibling, or they're couch surfing. Someone's responsible for that child. We try to make contact with that child, and because we're not sometimes a part of the school system, that they are more open, and we're not a defects person coming to get, this is not necessarily, sometimes it's seen as punitive. CIS is reaching out and providing services where they are. So that means if you have to go to the laundromat, you go to the laundromat. If you have to go to their house, you go to their house. Wherever it is, and wherever a parent is that we make that effort, because we're not bound by to be locked inside of a building, as a teacher is inside of a classroom. So we're able to go out and reach out. Child didn't show up for school today, then that's like that coordinator can get in their car and go to that child's house. That means bringing them back to school. Bringing them to school. That's what they do.
Good. Well, that's the reason for the question, was the flexibility that you would have that others might not. So thank you very much. I will, I'm going to jump back over just like we have for the others.
Yeah.
Let's let him speak first. So those, Representative Glaze and Floor Leader Wade, stand by if you have questions. All right, we'll turn the microphone. Again, introduce yourself and your role there, and then we'll turn the microphone over to you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and the council. I am Frederick Stanley. I'm a program manager now, 26-year employee with Communities and Schools of Georgia. I started as a site coordinator in Troup County. I worked there as a site coordinator for 23 years. And as a licensed and ordained minister, I've had the opportunity to marry some of my previous students. Sadly, to be the officiant at a funeral for some of my students and their families. Had the opportunity to have some students birth children, and they would matriculate through school, and I was their site coordinator of the parent second generation students as well. So we're thankful for that opportunity, and now working as a program manager, I supervise and support site coordinators in the different districts that we serve. The main thing as far as the question was, how do we do our evidence-based practice as the site coordinators is more valuable than ever as an effective strategy to keep the students or the kids and their families engaged in school. As Ms. Lewis previously said, we contact the parents. We find out what's needed, what's going on. If the student is on the verge of having that chronic absenteeism, we try to find out the needs so we can provide that support to make sure that, again, not just the student, but the student and their families are involved in our cases. We have tier supports that we provide for our students, and that the next slide will show the different supports, but we have customized not only site plans for the school after we do assessments, but we have customized plans for the students and their families as well. We have a comprehensive collection of data for the students in the assessment, and we meet those target areas that help that student be successful and to thrive in life. Data-driven monitoring that we have. We do progress monitoring, not just we'll start and just hope we hit a target, but we set specific goals that in high school, of course, we're on semesters. We do progress monitoring twice a year, and then did we meet our goal at the end of the year? And as well as middle and elementary schools, we have progress monitoring sometimes 4 times a year, and then we evaluate that we meet the goal. Students, of course, we don't leave the students leave us. And once they graduate, we give them an opportunity to be a part of our alumni. We give opportunities for the students to be productive citizens as well, to give back to their peers and communities. Some things that we believe is that every child with that one-on-one relationship with the caring adult, that they can find in the site coordinator. They can also find it in volunteers as far as mentors and tutors. We believe that we give the students a safe place to learn and grow. Again, if not having the proper basic needs, support they need, clean clothing. I've, as a site coordinator, have gone home and bring the clothes to the school, or to a laundromat that's local to help them be comfortable and able to learn. Our national president and CEO, Ray Saldana, said that we assist students to live good so they can learn good. And that's that primary focus of our site coordinators. And of course, we have the quote here: it's not programs that transform the students' lives, but relationships do. And that's what we found the most successful part. And how do we do it? Again, this is our evidence-based, proven model on how we provide the integrated student supports. Tier 1 supports are the whole school supports that we provide. We do at least at a minimum of 4 whole school supports that we provide for the school and all of the students to target whether it's attendance, chronic absenteeism, behavior, or the course curriculum with the students. And then we have the tier 2 and tier 3 supports. Tier 2 would be the small groups. We can group students that have like behaviors or like risk factors that we can channel our energies on helping not just that one student one-on-one with the case management, but again, a group of those students. Some of the things that we do with communities in schools, we have a theory of change within our evidence-based model. And the theory of change, the first thing that we believe is that we develop relationships with the students and the adults that care for them. And after we build that relationship, they trust us and they know that we're there to help and to support them in whatever they need. We develop then social and emotional and even academic measures for the students to help them be productive. If they just on the verge of failing classes, once we get them there, we get them involved in the things that improve, again, the ABCs, the attendance, behavior, and coursework. And after that, we improve the attendance, the behavior, and the coursework, which will get them out of the risk of dropping out, which they work hand in hand together. After we decrease dropout rates, we increase graduation rates. And helping the students graduate, then we give them career-ready skills that they can be productive citizens within the districts that we serve. We believe that every student, and it's been research has been done, that every student that drops out puts a bill on our cities, our states, of over $200,000 a year. And we have to scramble and find how can we, one, meet that debt, but yet help that person become productive citizen within the realms in which we live. So again, that's how we do what we do. Any questions?
Members, let's do this. I'm going to switch the order for a minute. I'm going to go to the Zoom and let the 2 on Zoom go first. Representative Wade, are you online with us still?
Yes, sir, I am. Can you guys hear me?
Yep. Community and schools. You have questions?
Well, the one thing that just jumps out to me is what are the number of school systems that you are not in? And is there any major reason? Is it just not having that champion, or they have some other, more locally created alternative? What's the experience as far as, are you wanting to expand and can't? Those kinds of things. Just curious about the bandwidth that you guys have currently across Georgia.
Some of the the counties that we have not reached yet. Being nonprofit, again, that communication part has not been made. There's a breach there. And once we do have the champion, as you spoke of, and as you heard Ms. Lewis speak, once we do have that conversation, the funding, then who will be the different pots or places where we'll get the funding to provide for the site coordinator or the people that will be able to impact the students and their families. That's the next personal question that we have to cross out, I guess.
Can I just kind of expand that question a little bit, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, please.
Would you say that you guys have a better connection with more of the metro communities across the state and less in rural, or is it evenly distributed? I'm just curious if there's an area that you're not able to serve as well, or you've not had the ability to find those champions. Obviously, rural school systems have different dynamics than metro, but just curious if that's the case with your organization.
We've been successful in building relationships with rural areas as well as the metro areas. We have 5 different regions in which we've broken Georgia down into those regions. And again, from the top we serve in Catoosa County, that's on the Tennessee line, all the way down to Charleston. That's right there before you go to Florida. But again, whether it's rural or metro, the urban or suburban, there's no barriers that we can't cross, that we can serve those people in those areas. I wouldn't say one would be better than the other. It's just a matter of getting someone in, the voices and the people with the funding, getting those together, and we're ready to serve.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Thank you, floor leader. Representative Glaze. Lydia, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Thank you so much. I appreciate the report today. I know you guys are in my district in South Fulton, and I'm thankful. I do want to know if you have any segregated data that allows us to see your impact on chronic absenteeism, even in the 24-25 school year. Because we'd really like to know if you guys meeting basic needs are really helpful, or your tier 1 supporting the entire school is where the major impact for lowering chronic absenteeism is coming from. Kind of want to see if you have that data to share with us.
I'm happy to share we submit annually to our Department of Education. Not only we negotiate our goals for every year, but we also send out a detailed report. And I'll be happy to be able to provide the committee with that detailed report that gives the details around chronic absenteeism, around our behavior and attendance. And also you will have the surveys that we conduct, information from the surveys that we conduct with our principals and parents and students.
Okay. Do you have any success stories that you can pinpoint, or is it everything we need to just wait until we get the report?
I can, because gosh, I've been around here for so long. I can tell you, and I just always think about one of the students that I've worked with locally, a young man by the name of Frederick Bailey, who was referred to us in 6th grade. And this is just, if we think like there are so many Fredericks in the world, based on his circumstances, Frederick was a clown in school. And then what we found, the referral that we received from him, for him, was about his not being able to see the board. And he was then, I think, a 6th grader. He was part of our after-school program. And what we found in getting him to the doctor for the very first time, to the dentist for the very first time, is that Frederick not only could not see, but Frederick also was as close to being homeless. He was one of those students who would clown and act a fool in school because he would rather be the idiot and the laughing stock of that classroom versus people to understand and know what his circumstances were. He was We put a bucket outside to wait on the rain to be able to wash his clothes. So these are students who look like they're okay sitting in your classrooms, but they are acting out based on what's going on with them at home. We have followed him from sixth grade all the way through high school with his site coordinator and through college. And he wound up having to leave his family's home and live with our bus driver. So we talk about what chronic absenteeism was. This is sometimes you have to help students remove from the circumstances that they're in, or you have to help them provide something as simple as an alarm clock so they're able to wake up and get to school. Providing vouchers or having a church partner with our sites coordinators who would go and use a church van to go and pick up students, do a run through the community to pick up students who are missed by a bus to get them to school. So we look for solutions based on the resources that exist. When we talk about rural communities, sometimes you get so much more done in a rural community than you can in an urban one. And the reason, because there is a sense of community, a sense of taking care of their own, a sense of taking care of their children. I think about Glasscock County, who would, the churches would get together and go to the food bank to bring the food back, and they would do a community distribution because we know that need. CIS would coordinate that. They identified the need, they found a solution. Same thing with down in Ben Hill County, where there are not a lot of resources. So CIS, Communities and Schools, becomes the resource. So it may be that we have to create or bring in or identify, because there's not an agency that does that really specific things. It's not, Big Brothers, Big Sisters. There's not a mentoring program. So you create those needed resources. So every time you think about what's needed, every community looks different. So we used to say, when you've seen one CIS, you've seen one. But every community looks different. True County looks different, has different resources. It's growing I just think it's becoming a bedroom community of Atlanta. But you also have industry that's growing. So, and then you have communities like in Dooley County, where there's very little to no industry. So you have to rely on the resources that exist within the community. When Fred talked about assessments, you do not only an assessment of what's going on at the school, but also what's going on in the community. Every community has its treasures. You just have to dig them out and find them, what they are.
Okay,
Thank you. I look forward to getting the report.
great. Thank you, Representative. Let's, any follow-up questions here?
Just a quick thing, Mr. Chair.
Yep.
I just want to say thanks again. And I think one of the things you highlighted is that public-private partnership. I think that can happen more in schools. When you see a public-private initiatives together, I know college career academies do a good job with that. They're usually pretty successful and effective. And this is really successful to me when I've seen in the past, because I've seen it not be successful, but it is successful when you talked about it. It's really got to be a total buy-in. It's got to be a fit top down from the superintendent to the principals, where the admin's got to support it 100%. They've got to give up classroom space or whatever else. That's where CIS really comes in, and it can really knock it out of the park if you're given the opportunity. And I think, again, it goes back to the passion that you guys have and the overall, you do have good practices you can share, but unless you get that shared partnership with the school system, it wouldn't work. So anyway, kudos.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to say thank you for what you're doing, because what we're seeing is it's not simply a policy issue. We are seeing significant gaps that our students have now that we didn't see 20 years ago. Some of that's pandemic related, some of that is society. And I'm very impressed looking at the way that you're seeking to fill those gaps and doing that successfully. So thank you on that. I was noticing on this sheet that we had on the bottom, it's the policy recommendations you had. And that final one was invest in prevention workforce.
Yes.
So some of the things we've listed today would be increase in social workers, hearing vision screenings, nurses. Is there anything else that you can think of off the top of your head that would come with that recommendation?
I think when we look at solutions, as I always say, we talk about whole child. Our whole children come out of whole communities, and they need to be supported. We you sit on an education committee, but bring in housing, bring in your law enforcement. Because we bring in those different entities to be able to support students, but get them to think about their work differently. As we talk about increasing the number of social workers, our goal is to reduce the need for a problem to rise to the level of a need for a social worker. If you can prevent that issue or whatever, or find that help before that, so it's like being an urgent care versus going to the hospital. Because I think when you know, the social worker, there is more than enough for them to do. Because there's so many high level needs that you don't necessarily want that social worker to have to be running around trying to find if a kid didn't have an alarm clock. You want that social worker to be finding if that child is being abused, or they need a home, or they need intervention services. So invest in the prevention. I think when we did the summit in December, one of the things that I was struck by, we had so many things on the front end of services from the school. And then we had the court system on the back end and a punitive, but we were the only ones standing in the middle in prevention. So if you're looking at how do we keep these issues from growing and continue to grow, is to invest in prevention and invest in the things that work, and that are willing to be held accountable. Because one of the things that that I have learned, if nothing else, in my 31 years in this business, is that when you hold yourselves accountable and you're willing to, you know, draw that line in the sand and say, this is my goal, and I'm held accountable for meeting that goal. I want you to hold us accountable. And I think the districts and the Department of Ed, all of us should be held accountable. Our communities should be as well. But invest in prevention services.
Anything, Sandy? Let me thank y'all. First of all, let me say it's very important to us to be able to be flexible. Your organization provides us that flexibility sometimes. We get very rigid with regulations and rules. So, and then, of course, the ability for other systems to know about you that might not know about you, or not know the ability of how to use you in certain areas like this. I also want to point out, by the people in the back of the room, members, it also shows the importance of this issue, that y'all pay attention to this. And this is obviously an impactful issue that we're discussing today, so that y'all have taken it on. So thank you very much for coming right there. And members, let's think, and y'all welcome. Sit down. Thank you
very much.
And I'll close out here. Let me work around the room just for a second here. Michael, anything that you need to add, or anything that you've heard? Great. Thank you. Members, before I do a closeout, and we're ahead of schedule here, you know, I've told you I would work to provide you lunch today. So we'll have a box lunch for you down in my office, those of y'all. But I want to allow you the opportunity. Any final parting comments before we talk about next meeting and my closeout?
Mr. Chair, I just want to say thank you, and I appreciate everybody being here, and looking forward to continuing to serve, and let's see if we can tackle this thing together.
Great. Thank you, Carmen.
I just echo that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for facilitating this. Thank you to each person that showed up here today, spoke with us, and shared, because talking about this, as I said before, put in front of us expands the issue, and I look forward to working and serving in this area.
Great. Sandy.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much for coming today. Very informative, lots of good information. I've got notes all over the place, but I'm looking forward to going through the next process. Thank you.
Floor Leader Wade, any comments you want to have?
Well, first, thank you for allowing for the flexibility with the technology today for me and my hectic schedule. And I appreciate all the feedback. The one thing I want us to, and I don't think anybody has lost sight, we heard a lot of positive things today. but I also have a sense that we cannot lose sight that we have a crisis that is building as it relates to just a societal issue of, is school as important as it ever has been? Yes, but there are lots of folks in communities that right now, we see the data that they're not making it a priority. So we need to figure out ways to enhance all the positive things we heard today. And I'll leave this for you to think about. I remember as a school board member, even as a student, the phrase that I heard growing up and I still hear today is, you can't drop out until you're 16, so you got to go. That is not an inspirational reason to support schools. We should graduate by 18. That should be the message, and we're going to help build the framework for every student to have success. I can't even imagine that we could justify a reason to drop out at any age. So hopefully we can change that. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Floor Leader. All right, Representative Glaze.
Yes, I want to say thank you so much to our chair, Chair Irwin. You put together a great program today. Thank you to our presenters. The information is just invaluable. I look forward to working with my colleagues to come up with opportunities and ways we can impact and get to our goal of reducing absenteeism by 5%. Appreciate working with everyone today.
Great. Thank you, Representative. Let me, before the two online, before you go, let me do a closing. I'm going to give everybody some homework here. So be prepared to respond back to me. What I would like from you, panel members, is your top 3 concerns today. Kind of what stood out with you as concerns. And we're going to start focusing in on those concerns at our next meeting. So if you would, in an email to me, you can either bullet it, you can paragraph it, you can put it in a sentence, but give me your top 3 concerns. And I will get with Chairman Dubnik too, that had to leave us, and get him to do it. What I'm trying to do is get from you what is important and focusing in on. So if you would do that, I would appreciate it. Everybody that participated today, Dr. McGibney, Mr. Hill, Ms. Lewis, thank y'all for your efforts, what you do in your jobs, as well as willing to share with us today. What we are tentatively TBA planning is our next meeting to be September 22nd here in this room. Do it again here. We have been limited to 3 meetings on this. So I cannot tell you exactly what's the 3rd meeting. I would tell you after the 2nd meeting, expect some homework again, as I think we grew a lot today and we've got deeper knowledge. And after we get some focus areas, we could really work towards that 3rd meeting at deciding what our next move is with policy or appropriations and/or. So that's kind of the effort. This is a very worthy topic that could impact tens of thousands of children. So I take this very serious. I have witnessed it myself, meaning the impact that chronic absenteeism has on the student and the family. And whatever we can do to help school systems attain their goal of 100% attendance. Let's get everybody there and let's get them learning. And those that aren't going to be there, I'm going to end it with the way I started it. We've also got to look at how we can be better at helping those when they can't be there. We have taken some mighty big steps in this state when we have snow days, us on the north end of the state, and we're able to continue the learning. We need to see what we can do for those that have to be home for their medical reasons, that type of thing, what we can do. So I can think that can be a part of this committee also. Thank y'all for your time together. Look forward to our September 22nd meeting, and we are adjourned.